Okay, so in this tutorial we study about the Spring. So as you all know that Spring has a most important feature which is known as dependency injection or inversion of control. And if we talk about the Java application development, enterprise application development, then we know that in Java application development everything revolves around the objects only. We create the classes, we create suppose class A and class B. Now if we want to use the properties and behavior of class A into class B, then we definitely need to create an object of class A into class B, and then class B will call the methods of the class A. So everything revolves around the objects, their instantiation, and how we are calling the methods of a different class or properties or the behaviors. But if we talk about Spring, what actually it does, it simplifies the Java development. This is a very bold statement because there are many frameworks which claim that we are able to simplify something or another, but Spring is able to simplify our application in a broad sense because of its feature of dependency injection or inversion of control. So let's first create a project. Though many hype is created around Spring that it's a very tough framework or something, but it's simple Java application and you just need to install the appropriate jars of Spring into your application and use the feature of dependency injection. So as we will move on, we'll study more about the annotations and everything about the Spring features. First, let's create a normal Java project. Next, and then you have to finish. It's just telling you about the perspective. You have to say yes because this is the Java EE perspective. Okay, so the biggest thing is that Spring simplifies Java development. And the most important feature of Spring is dependency injection, or you can say inversion of control. I'll also tell you about the difference between a dependency injection and what actually the literal meaning of dependency injection and inversion of control. Let's just save it in our application only. This is just about Spring theory. Okay, so now this is a simple Java project. We haven't installed Spring in it, or we haven't configured the build path and put the Spring jars in it. So let's study that how we can develop an application without using Spring, so that we are able to understand better that what Spring will help us in achieving. Okay, so let's create a tel comma employee. What's the use case we are using? Let's say we have an employee manager and we have another employee, say director. Now let's suppose that we are just showing the address of these managers and directors. So we have a private string city create getters and setters. The same thing we are having in the director class also. Let's say we have a method public void address, and we have a system get city. Clear? So we are having a same method in our director class also, but here this is not the manager, this is director address. Clear? Now we have one main application, or you can say a main class, where we will be displaying the address of both manager and the director. So what we are having is, we are having a display data. Now here suppose I want to show the address of manager and address of director, then what we'll do, we'll instantiate the manager class. We'll write manager equal to new manager, and then manager dot address. Clear? And similarly, if say I want the director address also, then I'll say director equal to new director. Okay, we haven't set this, so let's call the setter property and set the values. That is why it's showing null. Clear? This is just a simple Java application. So we are getting the manager address and we are getting the director address, or you can say the city only. Now here what we have done is, we have just simply created the one class manager and one class director, and in order to call its methods we need to instantiate the object of manager and an object of director and then call the appropriate method. So how many objects we are creating? We are creating 2 objects over here. So is there any way we can reduce the number of objects we are creating? Yes, there is a way. What? That is dynamic polymorphism. If you see over there, the method signature is entirely same, that is public void address, and even in the director class. So what we can do, we can do the coding to interface. What do we mean by that? Let me show you an example. Let's have an interface. As the name say, let's have a employee address. So we have an interface known as employee address, and we can have one method, that is public void address. Clear? Now what we can do is, we can implement this interface over here, and we have already implemented the unimplemented method. Similarly, in director class, what we can do is we can implement an interface employee address, and we have an unimplemented method. So what will be the advantage of this? In this, we don't need to create the two objects. We can at runtime decide which method we need to call, either of manager or of director. So how we can do that? We can just have an employee address and say employee So here what we have done is we have created an interface reference variable and an object is instantiated at runtime, but definitely we need to pass the values. So we can have a constructor over here so that we can set the values easily. This is now the constructor way where we can set the values of a manager class. So let me just have a simple constructor, because we know that constructors are also used to initialize the instance variables. So we have a public manager. I found you need to just put this, and then this is accepting our variable city, and then this dot city is equal to city, because we need to set this variable city. So you can just copy this in your director class to save time, but here the only difference will be the name will not be manager and this will be the name of the class, that is director. Clear? So now if I run it, see I'm getting a manager address is Chandigarh. And similarly what I can do is, if I change the reference variable to so at runtime we have changed the reference variable. This way we have to just create only one object, because this reference variable is now pointing to manager and this reference variable has lost the link to this and it's calling the director class. This is what is known as coding to interface. But so this is how we develop any Java application. Now how Spring will come into picture? Now you can see over here that we are still using a new operator in our application to instantiate the objects. In simple language, if we don't want to instantiate the objects of our own, we don't want to use the new operator in our classes, then we go for the feature which is known as Spring. And the feature is known as dependency injection, because definitely just think about, if you want to use this employee class address method, or we can have multiple methods in 7-8 classes, then in every class you need to instantiate the employee object and then call the method. Clear? Now we are having only one class, but we can have many number of classes in the real-time applications. So we need to instantiate that class in every other class and then call its appropriate object. So we need to use the new operator to instantiate the object. So if we don't want that and we just want that object should be ready-made and given by some framework, and we don't need to instantiate that object, then we go for the feature of dependency injection. Means the dependencies are being injected from outside the classes, and that is what is, and the control of injecting instantiating an object is being inverted, because now who is creating that object? Not the classes, but a Spring framework is doing this for us. So this is the literal meaning of dependency injection or inversion of control. So no new operator is used in classes in simple language, or you can say dependencies are injected from outside the class, and this is who is doing it? This is done by Spring framework using dependency injection feature. So as we'll move further, the things will become more clear. In the next tutorial, we'll see how we can develop the same application now using the Spring framework.